Yo, what's up? I know I haven't uploaded in a week, and that's because I've been waiting for this mic to arrive, which is why my voice sounds probably better. I don't know, please tell me. Anyways, in this video, I'm gonna be talking about making a better house, or actually a step-by-step guide of making a house for a beginner with no game passes. So if you do have a game pass or you're a pro at building, please get out of here. I'm just kidding, I want the views. Hold up, are you asking me how you're supposed to build a house without any game passes? Okay, yes, I know that might sound like a challenge for you people with game passes, but okay, there's like 4 game passes in here for building, and honestly, you don't need any of them. For example, just look at this house. Yes, I know it's ugly, I'm kidding. So it's not big, it's not over 1 floor, it doesn't even have advanced placing, and yes, I do know I made a video about this house before, but what I'm trying to say is that you can make some really good houses. At least I like to think this one's half decent. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is you can make some really decent houses without any game passes. Sorry, Coptus, for making you lose money. So you really shouldn't feel like you should buy game passes to become a better builder, because that's simply a lie. Unless it's advanced placing, then you should buy that. Before I get into the first step of this video, I have to do what I always have to do: the comments on my last video. So 50% of you guys were roasting me, I hate you guys, and 10% of you guys were saying you hate math, and honestly same. And then there's the 40%. Oh, you said that I pronounced pastel as pastel, and honestly, from now on I'm gonna say pastel instead of pastel to piss you off. So the first step in making any house is picking out a style for the house. So for example, this one is a modern house, and yes, I know I use game passes for this. The interior uses a modern design too. You have to be consistent with what style you're going to be using for your build. So for example, if you're having a modern build for the outside, don't just switch it up and make it all suburban from the inside. Otherwise that would look really weird. Usually people do it the other way, where they have a really suburban looking outside with a really modern looking inside, but that honestly makes no sense. So the most important tip for building, this also applies for game pass houses, is the path itself. You want to make sure your build is relative to the path that you're making. For example, a simple path I could have done is just having one leading from the sidewalk over here all the way to the garage, which is what I did, but then I also added a little triangular looking path, whatever you want to call it, over here, which adds more flavor to the build. And I'm going to show you more examples of how I've used this. I just noticed I deleted this house which I made last year, so I'm just going to use the video of it. So the pathway from the garage to the sidewalk wasn't a straight line and instead took a curve. I'm not trying to flex that I'm a good builder or anything. What I'm trying to say is maybe you can incorporate this type of style in your build instead of just having a straight line from the garage or door or whatever all the way to the sidewalk. So here's another example. I could have just done a straight pathway from the door all the way to the sidewalk. Same thing with the garages, but instead I took kind of a curve that leads them both to the sidewalk. So there's many different things you can do with this. You don't have to stick to anything like this. Adding a unique sidewalk probably makes you better than like 99% of builders out there already. Now that I have the styles and pathway stuff out of the way, we can actually get into the steps of making a house. And whenever you're trying to make a house, you should always start out with getting inspiration. If you just go on Google and search up Bloxburg house, then go on to images, you'll probably get some really good inspiration from here. Usually real life houses don't really work well in Bloxburg, so I just stick with Bloxburg houses. So when you're trying to make a house, you shouldn't actually just copy the entire thing. You should just get a simple idea from each house. So let's say you like the garages on this one. Maybe you like the way it's like it's 2 garages and one of them is curved, right? And maybe you look at another house. This is Frentrix, this is his house. So maybe you like the color scheme of it. So now maybe you're gonna incorporate the garage idea with the color scheme. Then maybe you're gonna get a third build for the front design. I don't know how to explain it. This is Azria's. Maybe you like the way the front is. So basically what I'm trying to say is don't copy entire builds. Maybe just get simple ideas from each one. Especially with the exterior, it's hard to be original because just about everything has already been made. You should also feel free to watch speed builds and maybe even rebuild them. Since you're a beginner, you don't really know how to make stuff yourself, and copying other people's builds honestly just teaches you a lot. Before I started making videos, I just used to watch other people building. I used to watch the entire like 1 hour length of a build, even though it's really boring. But I learned a lot about decorating and exteriors and all that type of stuff. Before you place your first wall down, you should know something. You should always start off with pillars instead of walls. Let's say you want to have a corner like this that has a pillar in the middle. Well, the thing is, if you don't have advanced placing, you simply can't. If you've been into Bloxburg for a while, then you probably know if you place pillars first, then followed by a wall, it's gonna work. I don't know why, but it just does. So instead of placing walls, start off with pillars. It's probably gonna look weird, but when you fill it up with walls, it looks fine. Now all the edges have an outline to them. And another thing is you want to avoid angled walls. So for example, if you're trying to build a house, please don't do this. All the beginners usually gravitate to making curved walls. I don't know why, they think it looks cool, but it never works with roofs. So for example, let's say you're trying to use the gable roof over here and you're trying to make a roof like this. It's going to ask you to have 90-degree corners. If I do a complicated building guide, then I'll be talking about that. There's some tricks you can do, but I'm not going to talk about them. They're too complicated. Another tip is to use manual placing instead of automatic placement. So as you can see with automatic placement, it sort of auto chooses the height for both of them already. Let's say you want them both to be the same exact height instead of them being different. So then you choose the roof, you go to manual placement, place the first one in. Let's say you want it to be tall. Why? I don't know. Now the second one's the same height. I know it doesn't look good, but that's just an example. So now that you have your outline and walls and the roof done, you should go and find a color scheme. So the best way to find a color scheme is to just place some walls beside each other and really just test out random colors. So I like this green, maybe you like this blue, and linen because everybody uses linen. So after picking colors, you should go pick textures because sometimes when you pick a texture for a color, it looks really ugly. For example, this one. So here are the colors I'm going to use for this example house. If you have trouble finding a color scheme, I suggest looking at other builds. I just go to my YouTube channel, pick out a color scheme. Some people get mad when you take their color schemes, but don't worry, I don't care. Let's just take a step back and talk about the buttons we have in this game. Over here on the bottom, we have a trash bin, which you probably know what it does. It just deletes a wall. And then there's the clone stamp tool, which you can use to copy stuff just like that. It also copied the color, and I don't know why I flipped it the other way. Then the last one is for coloring. Click on it, then you click on a wall or whatever it is, and you can color it. I hope you already knew what these buttons do. Now that you have your exterior and color scheme done, you're gonna delete this all. Even though this is just an example house, it really lacks something unique about it. It looks too basic, so if this is how your house looks like, I just suggest deleting it and restarting. So on your next try, you're gonna try to have something unique about it. So an example of this is maybe you're gonna have an L-shaped house. So here's a different style I came up with. Over here is the garage and here's the front door. But as you can notice, it's an L-shaped house when you look at it from the outside. And even though it's not the best exterior because I just spent like half a minute on it, it still has something unique about it. Another nice thing you can do is adding a detached garage. So let's say you have one over here, then you have your house over here. So this is a better house to make simply because it has something unique about it, as well as the path looking way better this way. So if you want to practice your exteriors, just come up with random designs and try to add something unique to it. I'm just gonna stick with this style I made. Step 5 of making a house is to do the interior layout. So what you want to do is delete the back wall, then start planning the interior. So you always want to have a little entrance in the front. So I'm just gonna go with something pretty basic. The entrance should be no bigger than a 3x3, and if you're gonna be making bathrooms, then they shouldn't be bigger than a 2x3 or 2x2. So as you can notice, I added on to the back. Usually what new players do is already build the exterior and then they're gonna build the interior inside of the exterior without like deleting the back wall, so it doesn't allow for any expansion. But when you delete the back wall or even the side walls, it allows you to add more shapes to your house. So for example, I might want to have another room over here, and it's just a really easy way to add shapes to your house. So now that I did the layout, I have to redo the roof. Oh wait, this is not how I want the roof to be. So if you're in a situation like me, you're gonna want to have two roofs. Try having one in the front and one in the back. So using two roofs, it now looks like a normal roof, and we can now work on the inside of it. So what you first want to do is add doors around the house. Now this brings me to my 6th step. Place down all the basic items of what you want. Since you're a new player, you probably don't know where everything is, so maybe you should take the time to explore the build and decorating section, because it might be quite a lot to take in. If you're making a living room, you're probably going to be looking in the comfort section for sofas and electronics for television. So what I have over here is a pretty basic living room design, just some sofas, a table, and a television. Feel free to copy it. Next, you should do the kitchen, which is in the counter section. By the way, you should only go for the cheapest items because you probably don't have a lot of money. So when you're making a kitchen, you're gonna want to have some counters, cabinets, and some appliance items. A really nice touch to any kitchen is adding an island. In my case, I didn't use a counter, I actually used a table. And if you want to do the same thing, it's called the quad table, I think. Let me just check. Yeah, it's called the quadratic desk. So after you finish your living room and kitchen, you want to move on to the dining room. I hope you already pre-planned all of this in my last step, so you don't have to make any changes to your build. So a dining room is pretty simple. Just go to tables and also chairs. So we want to search up dining table. Pick your favorite one. As I said, you should probably pick the cheapest one. So now that all of these are done, you should move on to the bedroom. So depending on the house you're making, you might have a master bedroom which has a double bed. But in my case, I'm just going to go with a single bed. And make sure to include a bathroom near the bedrooms, because that's pretty realistic. So there's one bathroom for the bedrooms, and you should also have one guest bathroom, usually beside the living room. Obviously, you don't have to follow everything I'm saying, but you can use it as a guide when you're building. Now that you've placed all the basic items, you want to move on to texturing. The step should be pretty easy if you already have your color scheme laid out. I'm not going to bother with coloring everything because it's going to take too much time. So I'm just going to move on to the next step, which is adding decoration. So this means you got to add some lighting. You might want to add some windows and all of that fun stuff. One of the best ways to get lighting in your house is using windows. Sometimes you don't know if you have enough windows, and a simple rule I go by with is if your house feels like a prison cell, then it probably doesn't have enough windows. By the way, when you're using light, you want to make sure they're all the same color, and I recommend using the color linen simply because it's not too bright and it also has a really warm look to it. See, it looks quite a lot better. When it comes to decorating, there's way too much to talk about, so I might just leave this for a separate video. If you're new to the game, you should just go on the decorate tab and just go through everything and add whatever you like. And if you really want inspiration, as I said before, just watch somebody's video and look at the decorations they're using and how they're using them. Now the last thing you want to add to your build is gardening, which is arguably the most important step for making your house look nice. So go to the build section and go to garden and place down some trees. I recommend using the rough tree as well as the rough cypress. So just have a few of them along the path. Don't make it too overcrowded, otherwise it'll look really ugly. And make sure you have a diverse amount of trees, so don't use the same exact tree over and over again. And so to add onto your pathway, you're going to want to use fences. It's a pretty simple way to outline it, but it makes it quite a lot better. And also in fences, there's also hedges you can use, and they add on a lot to your gardening. Like you can place a tree over here, and then along your pathway, you're going to want to spam some plants. But as I said before, you want to use a diverse amount of them. A nice thing to add to your outdoors is some lighting. My favorite is the classic outdoor lamp. A single one is enough to add, or you might want to add a few along your pathway. And one final thing you can do, so you want to go back to the gardening section, and then there's the stepping stone. You can make a nice random pattern with them. You can also mix it up with the smaller one if you color them both the same color. Okay, so I skipped coloring everything and I also skipped decorating everything. It would take way too much work, and honestly I could make this into another building video. So this entire house was probably made within like 5 or 10 minutes. So let's look at what I made. So here's a little pathway, and it's an L-shaped house as I said before. Let's head in. Here's the entrance. I know there's no decorations, don't judge me. I know the color scheme is off, doesn't matter, but it's honestly overall not a bad house. If I put some time into this and decorated it and actually used colors, then this would be a really good house. I'm back to this build. You can probably notice the patterns I used in my previous build and how they apply to this build. So for example, with the gardening and the pathway itself, and the way I was talking about the layout, it all translates into this build. I actually used all of those steps and tips in this build, and this build is kind of popular, so I guess what I was saying is kind of useful. With enough time spent building, you'll definitely become a better builder, and over time everything will be easier to you, hopefully. I hope you learned a thing or two, even if you're not a beginner. And if you are a beginner, then go ahead and build your first house and send me a picture, because I really want to see if this actually helped. By the way, use store code Anix if it did help. Okay, bye.